Welcome everybody to my Pet Death Knight overview. This isn't really going to be too much of a how-to. This is just kind of how I decided to build it and how things kind of naturally progressed for me. I say it's not a how-to because I feel like there's a lot more to get out of this build than what I'm interested currently in putting into it, and we'll get into some of the specifics of what I mean by that in just a minute. But I wanted to talk about some of my experiences, what maybe you can expect, what it should be able to deliver to the average player. We'll start going through some of that. So first and foremost, I got through Ultimate absolutely no problem. I wouldn't really expect anybody running this build to really have too much of a problem. It's pretty straightforward and not a complicated build to play. I have a really full icon bar down here. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to play it that way. I do have Blitz and Leap, for example, so 2 movement skills. Maybe that's too much for you or you're not interested. Maybe you could invest more in pet resists than I did. Let's look at that real quick. I feel like pet resists probably make here's all my pet stats in general if you're curious, so I guess we can just get that out of the way first. Around 800 damage, around 100 life. Damage procs up to about 1,000 with Master of Death and Shepherd's Call. We can look at that in a minute. But the resists, I feel like, are really one of the most important aspects to your pets if you want them to have longevity, particularly Aether and Chaos. If you notice, both of those are sub 40, which I feel like isn't good enough. Poison also as well can be a problem. Not so much of a problem for me because I have a metal here that has a heal on it, and it's very good for counteracting dots because it has a fairly short cooldown. I think it's around 6 second. Yeah, 6 second cooldown, so it's pretty quick. And a 12% plus 400 is a reasonable heal. I mean, you notice I can see the health bars move when I cast it, even though I don't think his thing shows me here. My Blight Fiend has 70,000 hit points. It's a great AoE heal on a pretty short cooldown, and I'm pretty sad because whenever I finish out, so I happen to be doing Galls, and the one piece I'm missing is the metal, so I would have to get rid of that heal to finish off the set. Now, I'm not harping that a Gaul set is 100% the best set for Death Knight, but 2 Blight Fiends I feel like is pretty tempting, but a lot of these bonuses do go toward Occultist. So there's also a Skelly set I feel like that's really interesting, and there's a Raise Spirit, is that what he's called? There's a Reap Spirit set that also looks really interesting, so I just went, well, I'll show you why. This skill in particular was my favorite thing about Blight Fiend. This one's good too. This is a really good nuke, but this one has minus 320 defensive ability for the target, which I just feel like is massive. It doesn't go very far around him. So, but I don't have any problems clearing trash, and I wouldn't expect most people to. Stars and stuff like that go down pretty quick. I feel like that's really best for like bosses and Nemesis and stuff like that, and that's kind of where you need those kind of abilities, and I feel like he's pretty good overall at sticking enough on them. And then, man, having 2 of him, I'm not saying that they would stack, but they would definitely increase the on-screen radius of having 2 of them out versus just 1, so a lot more enemies would be affected. Okay, so yeah, no, I knew this video was going to be all over the place, but we'll just kind of try and get through it. So Ultimate, no problem. I had a friend that had some problem clearing the boss in Malmuth. He has a lot of AoE, and so I had to go in there and help him, and of course no problem together. I will say I have not gotten all the way through Forgotten Gods on any difficulty. I waited until I cleared Malmuth on ult to start it. I have started it. I am up to, I guess I'm getting pretty close. I didn't realize I was quite that close, but definitely haven't gone all the way through it. Don't know what the boss is going to be like. Maybe that will be a raffle stomp on my side. I don't know. But for now, the normal campaign has offered nothing that this build cannot conquer. Okay, so next up, probably maybe some people might consider the next step up from that to be Nemesis. So I've encountered 3. Musalaki, I guess that's how you say it, the big giant kind of frozen undead guy. He was absolutely no problem. Okay, so I read that some people were having some trouble with Valderan. I think he's ethereal, and Archmage Alexander is ethereal Vanguard. Does that sound right? So I thought Valderan would be a good one to do, to include. So I took a couple of runs. I haven't had much trouble. I've been surprised getting these Nemesis to spawn. So I read some people were saying one of the problems that can make him difficult is that he can be really bursty. So I tried diligently to stay away from him. As you can tell, he has his moments. He chunks me pretty good. Just trying to stay away. Scary moment there. And then I guess he sucks me back in there. That was pretty scary too. But boy, those pets, they do the work. That Blight Fiend. So, but if you've been anywhere on forums or say Reddit looking for Death Knight builds, there's no doubt you've encountered the Krieg set, right? People telling you Krieg is the set to get. And so I took a lot of runs and encountered this next guy. Alright, so this isn't the Fleshworks. I'll just kind of let this run for a second while I talk some more. So I feel like I got pretty lucky. I made every Krieg run on Ultimate. I didn't do any of them on Elite. I waited to farm it until I was 100. I don't know how big of an impact any of that is. I'd like to think that they're more likely to drop their stuff in Ultimate versus in Elite. I don't know that for sure, but I'd like to think there's incentive to do it on Ultimate, and I feel like I got pretty lucky. I would say I got all 5 pieces in probably less than 50 runs, probably more like between 30 and 40, and I only got 2 duplicates. I think 2 boots and 2 gloves. Only 1 helm, 1 shoulder, and 1 chest. That all sounds accurate. And while you're making this run, as we're going to encounter in a second when we zone into the next little part, I encountered Archmage Alexander. I really feel like close to 50%, maybe 40% of the time. He was there all the time. And so he actually, of the 3, I didn't go out of my way to find any more of these guys. I thought 3 would be telling enough. If you can do 3, you can probably do most of them. This guy, this Archmage, was the worst for me. And the thing that makes him so difficult, we will see in just a second, is his little ether meteor. I assume it's ether because it's got that kind of greenish, bluish, mostly green tint to it. So, and I don't think it's poison or anything. I'm pretty sure it's ether damage, and I'm pretty sure it crits because it about one-shots me. Pretty close. I think in this one I'm about 12k or so, which is almost full. And yeah, that thing just lights me up. So I have to be really careful with avoiding it. And I know it's a very telegraphed maneuver. That's probably why it does so much damage. But I just always find with these telegraphed attacks that I'm like mid-cast or had just cast, and I just kind of don't give myself enough time to get out of the way. Alright, so anytime I go in with this guy, it's like, pause for a second, deep breath, there's my heal, make sure. And if you're wondering what that other pet is beneath the Blight Fiend on my little interface, that's the crab. We'll look at him in a second. We'll go through all my items after I get this guy down. So as you can see, man, I'm just scared to death of that meteor. And see, there it goes. So I am 12.4 alive, dead. Just like that. Alright, but I'm not done, right? Here we come back for part 2, for round 2. Yeah, so this guy got me consistently down the most. And the reason I say I feel like that meteor is a crit is because there's plenty of times that I take it and it only does like, I guess it's hard to ballpark, maybe 4 or 5k. Now I don't know if a crit strike for mobs deals that kind of difference in damage from 4 or 5k up to 12.4 plus, but I just know that the meter doesn't get me every time. Okay, while this guy's going down, I'll talk about Gladiator Crucible. So let me tell you, I had a heck of a time finishing Challenger, the middle category. 80 to 100 was pretty wild. I just couldn't keep my skeletons up. And the Blightfiend went down pretty too on that range as well. And the Crab, of course, has no shot. He's not a very good pet. And he's on such a long cooldown. But it was really hard for me to keep my skellies, as you can see here on this guy. Okay, now, did y'all see that? Alright, so let's watch this one again. This is going to be good. Okay, so I'm about full, down to about 9.4. So that's about 4.5. So I just have trouble believing that crits do like triple damage for mobs, but I don't know, maybe they do. I'm not that familiar enough with these guys. So there we go. We can at least get him down. We just have to be really careful or not get unlucky with our taken crits. But I feel like that meteor one-shots me more often than not. At least that's what I'm used to. So if anybody is wondering about my defensive ability, why am I getting crit by that meteor so much? 2450. Of course, I haven't fought him in a while. He's obviously not the last mob I fought. Don't know what his crit rate against me actually is. It's not 0. I don't remember. And this could have changed. It could have gone up since I've done him. I've gotten a few different pieces. But okay, Crucible. So I did unlock Gladiator, and quite frankly, I don't expect that much more from it. I feel like 50 Gladiator is probably reliably about as far as you'll get. I think you could get to 100 with buffs and towers and things like that. I didn't want to invest all that because I was kind of over the build at that point. And so let me talk about some of my big criticisms with this build. Is Soldier just doesn't really contribute enough. And I feel like that could be optimized. Like I could go shield and get overguard. That's a really good skill if you're shielded. I do have Menhirs maxed, and I do have Field Command pretty much. I think it is max. I must not have much plus Soldier. I was also running Warcry for a while, because as you guys have seen well enough, this build I feel like I get chunked pretty hard, and I feel like that's fairly new since these recent patches they've had in the last, what was it, like June, July range, somewhere in there. My resists are mostly pretty good. Chaos needs some help, but otherwise I do wish some were above 80. Specifically Ether or Chaos or Vitality. Those are the three that I like to overcap the most if I can. But all 80s is what we have. So some of the ways I feel like this build could be optimized. For example, I'm running Achilleans on my chest. I feel like something that increased armor absorb would be better there. Another example is I have the Scorched plating on my belt, which doesn't increase armor. I could, for example, I have the anti-venom here, which is 24 armor. That could go on the belt, or maybe something that does even more armor, like Ogden Bog or something like that. Leather. So little things like that could add up into a lot. I also could be running a shield, but I'm running the Guardian because of Skellies. +3 Skellies is nice, and I feel like the Skellies are a huge damage source. So no shield if I want to be running Skellies. Like I mentioned earlier, Gauls. I have Gauls 3-piece, chest, shoulder, glove. Overall, really good. I wish I could have found the metal before I respec. I would really love to know what 2 Blightfiends can do. But, you know, just wasn't in the cards for me. Didn't find it. Soul Catcher Amulet here, +1 all Necro. Don't think there's much to really, not even running Ravenous Earth. Rings or resist plugs more than anything, especially this one, 98 poison, and as you can see, I'm really not that overcapped. Good Blight Fiend ring here, Chaos, Acid, and Poison and Health for pets, super good. Mention my heal. Okay, yeah, the crab pet comes from Hysteria. I've felt like, since I'm so pet focused, just the more pets I can have out, the better. Even mediocre ones are nice. Pretty good belt. Pets, +1 all Necro. Blight Burst, which is one of his big nukes. Not running any chaos damage, but still a good belt. And this is just a resist plug as well. Okay, so we've looked at Soldier. Not a lot to talk about here. I was having trouble, I think it's this one, running some of my pieces. Was it my chest piece? I had a heck of a time getting enough, it's gonna be down here, getting enough physique to run something. That's why I took this. Maybe some of these could get unspent now. In fact, there's probably a lot of room for optimization in here. Necromancer, this is where the bulk of the points are. I've been a little disappointed, to be honest, with Reap Spirit. I don't feel like the Wraith himself really does that much damage. I feel like most of the damage kind of comes from the cast. If you look, 240 main hand damage, that's really nice. A lot of ether damage, and then a lot of vitality decay. Even so, I still feel like it would be fun to run the set that gives me 3 of him, but by himself, you know, I'm just saying, like, maybe this is an example where some points could come out. When we're looking at Skellies, the reason I think the Skellies are so good is because they have on them 260 flat vitality. I think this is modified by damage already. 250 extra flat vitality, and then when you cast this, they get a flat 38. Now that doesn't maybe sound like a lot. If you consider 800 damage, up to 1,000 damage, that's 38,000. That's just for the Bone Harvest proc, plus those other 2 skills. There's also, I'll show you guys this chest piece in here. Okay, so there's a, this is craftable actually. You can craft this chest. Probably going to run this on a retaliation character, but if you look under the Asgorian tactics, you get another 140 to 290 vitality damage projected to allies around you. So, you know, flat damage like that times 1,000%, well, maybe times 900% on average, that's a lot of extra damage. So I feel like each Skelly, I mean, it seems like, unless my math is like way off, is like 100,000 damage or more. So I feel like this build does put out the damage. The problem is keeping the pets up and keeping myself up. Big problems with that, but I feel like with some tweaking, this could be a really solid build. One more aspect about clearing content, which is the key dungeons. I have gotten through Steps of Torment, no problem. Actually, I never struggle there. Bastion of Chaos, the boss got me maybe 25% of the time. Generally no problem there. And then Ancient Grove, there's a room you go into that you trigger these like mass spawnings of mobs, and I die there almost every time. So I can clear 2 of the 3 really reliably. 1, I don't even think I've gotten all the way through Ancient Grove. I don't think I can ever get past that room. I should just skip it, but you know, I'm normally not thinking, normally just running through there. Alright, one more thing before we wrap up, which is devotions. I'm sure everybody's wondering. Okay, so I have Ether Fire here on my Skellies. That's just to give them something to proc, something I feel like is really important. It can't have a cooldown since there's so many of them, and they will just carpet the room sometimes in this stuff. I feel like it's really great, even though I'm not ether damage. One nice thing about pets is they tend to just be all damage, so I figured any constellation with no cooldown is probably really good on them, and I feel like that one works well. I have the poison scorpion sting for the Blight Fiend. I have Bysmeal's command just to get hopefully another pet out. That one's fine. These are really all just kind of plugs, nothing too much here. This one's got pet stuff in it, but that's mostly just building up constellation points, these guys. Ratosh, of course, really important. Tree of Life, probably the most important. If you can get it, I feel like it's actually one of the best, but I feel like it's mandatory for a pet build. And then I agonize between Empyrean or Korvac. Running Korvac for now, but I noticed Empyrean has Ether and Chaos, which I was just saying, right? Those weren't good enough on my pets. If I was gonna tweak this build to try and make a serious run at Gladiator 150, 170, I would probably make this switch. I feel like that would give me a lot of flex, because Korvac would free up some of my greens here. But this one's really good too. Some good stuff in here. And of course the when my pets crit, which again plays into the whole reduced defensive ability thing for the target. Pretty good overall. I like this build. And if I didn't mention, of course, Shepherd's Call. I've been so I was running. Let me talk about how I was leveling and how I kind of came into this build. When I was running 40s and 50s, I was doing Bone Harvest. Just as a nuke, not really. The only reason I'm running it now is because of the pet bonus here. I switched back to it. When I got probably 60s, 70s, I was running Bone Harvest with some pets, but not really as a focus, and I thought, let me try a pet build. So I just unspec'd Bone Harvest, went more into the pets, and I ran Drain Essence just for kind of to try and keep myself up. I was one-hand shield at the time. And I said, I'll just kind of be like this tanky Skelly commander and let them do all the work. And they were so squishy at the time. You know, you have to really invest into your pet toughness, and I've kind of mentioned that. But as the build grew, I came back to Bone Harvest just for this. And so the reason I mention all this is because Drain Essence was my Shepherd proc, and since Bone Harvest has a cooldown, I thought, well, you know, I felt like I was getting less uptime on my Shepherd's Call, so I switched it to Ill Omen, which is actually amazingly effective. I've been surprised. I feel like I get extremely good uptime, maybe close to max uptime. So Ill Omen's really good at proccing constellations. So just a quick recap, what you can expect. You'll get through Ultimate. You'll get most of the Nemesis, I think, right? Nemesises. You'll get most of the Nemesises. You'll get for sure Steps Torment. I feel like no problem, and you should be able to do Bastion of Chaos super reliably. And then Ancient Grove for me, maybe with some tweaking, but as it is, I don't really go there. And you'll definitely unlock Gladiator, but don't expect to get to 150 unless you do some major tweaking, which I wouldn't be surprised by. So, hope some people found this informative. I plan to do like a comparison build once I've been Krieg for a little while. I hate to be that cliche, but I really want to try it because everybody says it's good. So, I have to at least try it. I do feel like there's a strong chance we'll maybe come back to this build when I find the final Gall piece, because I think 2 Blight Fiends just sounds too fun to not do. Or if I get more of that Skelly set, I feel like I could respec again for that and do some tweaking and really try and see what you can get out of this build with significant investment. But for now, that's about it. I thank you so much for watching. I hope it was informative. Hope you learned some things. Maybe you're tempted to try it now. I feel like a build that can farm Ultimate and the Nemesis is a fair build. It's a good enough build to go after. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.